Benthic Gin. 2, a blue and a black for a 5/3. 4 mana for a 5/3 Island Walk. Yeah, mediocre. During your upkeep, lose 2 life. So apparently 5/3 with Island Walk is too good for 4 mana, so I need to lose life. But it's just a creature, so these days these aren't really that good. Island Walk, yeah, maybe it's good because you put a Curiosity on it. There's a lot of things that if it deals combat damage to your opponent, you get to draw a card. That's where this thing maybe becomes half decent, but it's not. That's not what people are playing creatures for these days. They want the Emrakul effects and stuff like that, so probably never going to be worth anything. Bone Mask, 4 mana artifact. Then you can pay 2, tap it, prevent all damage to you from any one source. For each 1 damage prevented in this way, remove the top card of your library from the game. Okay, that's a bit of a weird card, so there's a chance that this can, spike sooner or later. You're looking for another card that, massively benefits from you removing cards from your library. That sort of synergy doesn't exist at this point, so the card doesn't have much value, but when these things sort of come together, that's when this is the only card that does it, or all the cards that remove cards from your library, they all just pop off and become really valuable. So probably not worth buying it now, but it's something that you always have to keep in mind. Reserve list cards that do XYZ, if that XYZ ever becomes good, go back and find the reserve list card and just buy it up. River Merfolk, 2 blue for a 2/1. Probably not that good. I don't know how good Merfolk are. Pay a blue, it gets Mountain Walk until end of turn. Yeah, really, I don't know. Small creatures aren't that good. Maybe it's new tech in a Merfolk deck, but it's probably never going to be worth anything. Icacian Skirmishers, 3 and a white for a 1/1. Bans, first strike. All creatures that bans with it gain first strike. So it's not really that good. You get a bad creature for 4 mana. Banding and first strike actually makes some sense here, but reality is it's not game winning. It's not flashy. It's not going to really do much in terms of winning the game, so it's probably never going to see play, never going to see demand. Blizzard, 2 green, enchantment. Then you're going to pay the cumulative upkeep 2 every turn, so it's not going to last long. You cannot cast Blizzard if you control no snow-covered lands. Okay, so there's even more conditional, but it's not that bad of a condition. Creatures with flying do not untap during their controller's untap phase. So that's not too bad. Pretty good effect, but no one's really trying to stop flying creatures from untapping. That's not like a big part of the game, so unlikely to ever be worth anything. Pauper's Cage, 3 mana artifact. At end of target opponent's upkeep, if that player has 2 or fewer cards in hand, Pauper's Cage deals 2 damage to him or her. Okay, so it's kind of the Black Vice kind of thing going on. It's not really the sort of strategy people are trying to play. It's a bit costly for the effect. 3 mana to maybe do damage to your opponent if the conditions are met. It's not really, the rack, that kind of thing. Once there's a concentration of cards that all work together really well to do it like they did in Modern for that small, narrow amount of time, when the rack was really good, then yeah, these cards become sort of quite sought after, good, useful, but at the moment, no, and unlikely to really be. Rebecca Wizard's Savant, 2 and 2 blue, so 4 mana for a 0/1. That's horrible rate, so it better be really good. Tap it. Rebecca deals 2 damage to target creature or player and does not untap during your next untap phase. So that's just pure garbage. 2 damage isn't really going to change the game in any way. It's not worth 4 mana and a 0/1 creature, so bad creature all around. Spirit Shield, 3 mana. Pay 2, tap it. Target creature gets +0/+2. As long as the shield remains tapped, you can choose not to untap it during your untap phase. So early version of equipment, horrible. 3 mana +2 to activate just to give +0/+2. Never going to be worth anything. General Jarkel, 3 and a white, so 4 for a 1/2. Horrible rate. But then the ability, tap it, switch the blocking creatures of 2 target attacking creatures. All defense must remain legal. Use this ability only during combat after defense is chosen and before damage is dealt. This is actually quite useful for some fringy kind of things. Maybe for an EDH commander, playing these kind of silly games is actually useful. So I can see there's some utility in this card, but in general, it's not something that people are basing their gameplay around. But it's a weird effect, and it could be popular, you know, when people start catching on that this kind of thing makes a mockery of blocking, but unlikely to really pop off. Mindbender Spores, 2 and a green for a 0/1 flying. Okay, this bit weird card. Whenever the spores blocks any creature, put 4 fungus counters on the creature during its controller's untap phase. Remove a fungus counter from the creature as long as the creature has a fungus counter on it. It doesn't untap. So they're sort of like stun counters now. Puts a creature sort of out of play for a few turns. Not really a useful effect though, so unlikely to ever be worth anything. Sodar Jabari, 3 and a white for a 2/2 with flanking, and if it attacks, tap target creature defending player controls. So yeah, there's not a lot of demand for these kind of creatures that enhance attacking by removing a blocker. Flanking isn't busted or anything, so that's not really a big plus. All in all, it's pretty weak creature for high cost. People prefer to play stuff with insane come into play abilities, or, you know, combo potential. So this one probably not likely to see much play. Implements of Sacrifice, 2 colors. Artifact, 1, tap it, sacrifice Implements of Sacrifice to add 2 mana of any 1 color to your mana pool. Okay, so it's mana positive, that's a good thing. I don't think anyone really has a demand for this, but I can see it becoming useful in some respect if the conditions are right. So it's just a pretty average card, pretty mediocre, but some potential. Lichenthrope, 3 and 2 green for a 5/5. Okay, it's not the best, but then it's got a massive downside. For each 1 damage dealt to it, put a -1/-1 counter on it. During upkeep, remove the -1/-1 counters. Or remove 1 of the -1/-1. It's just horrible. There's better things. You'll get it better than a 5/5 for 5 mana these days anyway, without a downside. Sworn Defender, 2 and 2 white for a 1/3, which is pretty bad rate. But then it's got the ability, you can change its power to the toughness of the creature blocking or being blocked by it. -1, so it just will have 1 below the toughness of the creature it's blocking or blocked by. And then you do the same with the Sworn Defender's toughness to make it 1 higher than the power of the blocker or attacker that you're blocking. So it just sort of bounces the creatures off each other. No real use though. Like, this kind of stalling creature combat doesn't take place in Legacy, Modern, anywhere. It's not even a play style, so it's never going to be worth anything. Anaba Ancestor, 1 and a red for a 1/1. Okay, that's pretty bad rate. Target Minotaur gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Okay, it's a mediocre buff. It's not worth it in terms of a card to do that, and it's fragile, it's a creature. It's not worth it at all. Urborg Stalker. During each player's upkeep, if that player controls any non-black permanents other than lands, the Urborg Stalker deals 1 damage to that player. Okay, so okay effect, sort of like residual damage every turn. but you're getting a 2/4 creature for 4 mana. Yeah, still not selling it to me, mate. But yeah, I don't see this ever being worthwhile. Dwarven Thaumaturgist, 2 and a red for a 1/2, and it's got a sort of semi-unique ability: switch power and toughness of target creature until end of turn. Effects that alter creature's power alter its toughness, and vice versa. Yeah, a bit of a weird one. Really doesn't see much use. The thing is, when there's another card that works well with this, and it breaks, the interaction breaks, becomes like a game-winning or game-tilting effect, then this is the kind of card that will get bought out and be very valuable. But something you just keep an eye on. But at the moment, there's no real reason to run it. No one thinks this is a game-winning card. Keljoran Phalanx, 5 and a white for a 2/5, but it has banding and first strike. So bad stats all round, never going to see real play. Sawback Manicore, 3, a red and a green for a 2/4. Pay 4 and it gets flying until end of turn, so it's a pretty bad creature all around. Pay 1. The Manicore deals 2 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. Use the ability only once each turn, and only if the Sawback Manicore is attacking or blocking. So he's involved in the combat, he can dish out another 2 damage somewhere to another attacking or blocking creature. Pretty average, I must say. No one's thinking this is gonna... It revolves around, trying to win via combat, which you're either winning already because you've got much bigger creatures, or you're going to do something that the opponent doesn't see coming. It's not, you don't want to choreograph your actions on a card so they can play around it. It's never going to be worth anything. Goblin Flotilla, 2 and a red, 2/2, Island Walk. Mediocre as, but Island Walk sometimes has some benefits. At the beginning of the attack, pay a red, or any creatures blocking or blocked by Goblin Flotilla gain first strike until end of turn. So a bit of a downside. The creature's no good. You wouldn't play it if you weren't using the Island Walk anyway. It's just rubbish. Miser's Cage, 3, artifact. At end of target opponent's upkeep, if the player has 5 or more cards in hand, the Miser's Cage deals 2 damage to him or her. So just doing 2 damage a turn, if that's the sort of thing that you think is going to win the game, and it's conditional on them having a certain amount of cards in hand, geez, you beat me. But otherwise, it's not really good enough to do anything. Storm Spirit, 3, a white, a blue, and a green. 6 mana for a 3/3, but it's got flying. It's a bad rate still. Storm Spirit deals 2 damage to target creature. So this is not bad. It's sort of like a Prodigal Sorcerer kind of thing, just doing 2 damage here and there, but it's fragile, it's a creature, and otherwise doesn't really do much for the game, so never going to be worth anything. Tainted Spectre, 3 and a black for a 2/2 flying. So 4 mana, 2/2 flying, not so bad. Pay 1 and 2 black, tap it, target player chooses a card from his or her hand, and then chooses either to discard the card or put it on top of his or her library. If the card is discarded, the Spectre deals 1 damage to each creature and player. Play the ability as a sorcery. So sort of like a discard effect, rolling discard effect, keep doing it. Not really something people play. Maybe there's going to be a mass accumulation of lots of different creatures that sort of do this effect, and then it becomes popular to build a deck around it. Otherwise, it's not going to be worth anything ever. Avazoa, 3 and a blue for a 2/2 flying. Skip your next untap phase. Avazoa gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Use it only once. Yeah, that's not good at all. So it just becomes a slightly larger creature at the cost of losing an untap step, which most people wouldn't bother with.